Yeah. Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is being televised live on ACPS TV and streamed on ACPS YouTube channel. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room. So please make sure you read those if you have not already. You'll please pause for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. And now, as we move to the pledge, we are pleased to have with us Scout Troop 804 from Millersville, whose members are here to work on their Citizenship in the Community Merit Badge. Thank you for being here and welcome. As an added treat, I'm pleased to invite them forward to lead us in tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll please come forward. You want to lead us?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you would come up here and we'll get a picture.
You guys can move back to the dais.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're in business. I can see you. All right, everybody, keep looking this way. We'll take a few of them. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. So, that now brings us to item 2.03.
Mike.
That brings us to item 2.03, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Do I have consensus? Thank you. And that brings me to item 2.04, establish agenda order. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the agenda as printed.
Second.
Thank you. Do I have consensus? Thank you. That brings us to item 2.05, recognitions. Ms. Corkadell.
Tonight, I am very pleased to share that the board will be recognizing Southern High School's senior Ethan Schofield on being named the Maryland Farm Bureau Agricultural Ambassador for the 22-23 year. The Maryland Farm Bureau Ambassador Program chooses youth leaders with an interest in agriculture and a desire to promote Farm Bureau and Maryland agriculture. Their year of service will allow them to participate in many great opportunities, including networking, advocacy, and leadership development to advance their skill set to become future youth leaders. Ethan has steadfastly advocated for agriculture education by speaking before the Board of Education, meeting with the county executive, and many other elected officials, attending leadership conferences at the state and federal levels, and will be attending really soon the Farm Bureau's Fusion Conference in March. That will be held this year in Jacksonville, Florida. As a member of Southern High School's FFA, Ethan has become a part of two award-winning teams that placed silver and bronze respectively at the National Future Farmers of America competition. Agriculture awareness and education are what motivates Ethan to achieve new success. And let me just say, as a person not just representing Southern High School, but our farmers, I want to speak for a minute. We're now 6th generation removed on average as individuals from our farming community. And all that said, an agriculture history is very rich in our county. And it's not just about preserving history, but it's about shaping and creating a new future, not for our county, for our state, and for our nation. Food is vital, no arguments there. But how we ensure that the hungry is not left hungry. How we ensure that we feed our folks in a responsible manner and grow local, right, is something that many embrace, including our grocery stores. But it all starts with an individual who's willing to become a farmer. Our FFA program is very robust and our CASE curriculum is strong. Ethan came before us almost a year ago. And this young man was not just willing to advocate for the program that he serves in, but also share his personal story and journey of how it took him from a moment that so many of our teens face, of not just uncertainty and fear, but potentially even detrimental behavior, and how a program like this turned it around. Not only did it turn it around, but it gave him opportunities to test his leadership skills and to advance them and to grow with them along with his peers. And I will tell you that you want to talk about running a good meeting. FFA could teach every single person in this room a thing or two about that, because they have fundamental respect for leadership and for their organization. They understand the fidelity and the importance that what they leave behind for the future students is important. All these are fine leadership qualities. The blueprint, something new and on everybody's mind for various reasons. I see some here probably going to want to speak on that. And that's great. But remember, that blueprint vision includes these career-ready opportunities, and whatever we can do to advance them, to strengthen them, and to actually give these students those similar opportunities that our other programs do, I think is definitely worthy. And we have an advocate that will carry on for the rest of his life and have left an impression on not just our local Southern community, but on each and every single person in this county. And so, sir, this is well-deserved. And I know you well represent and will continue to do so. And I'm so very proud of you as a person, and I know your parents are too. So please come up and join me as we grant you the honor of the citation. And would you like to share with us, we're going to take a couple pictures here in a minute and the board members are going to come down, but who is with you tonight to share in this moment?
My mom and my dad are here, as well as my younger brother and my older sisters watching the stream from Colorado.
Well, hopefully she's getting some good skiing in.
As well as all
Every year, right?
yes, and my principal, Miss Hopkins, is here as well.
Well, you have many people I know always well supporting you, and you support them. This young man supports so many future farmers of America and works so well with the team. We're going to miss you at the end of this year. I've got you. I know you will be back as an alumni, but I'm definitely going to miss being with you at the pavilion and sharing all these magical moments, because now you're going to be off really, really soon being an adult. But I'm looking forward to giving your commencement speech and conferring you this year, because you're going to do great things.
Thank you.
So the other board members are going to join me now. We're going to take a couple of formal pictures, and then we'll bring the family up for a few photos as well, if everybody doesn't mind standing by for a minute or two.
And as we're gathering, can I just say, Mr. Schofield, I remember you coming before us the first time. You made an impression. I said that guy's going places. We all eat, and your leadership, starting from this young age, is absolutely critical to our future. So thank you.
Yeah, it's impressive. Thank you.
So come on this way. Should we? Do we need to put Mr. Silkworth?
Mr. Silkworth should be here. We got a couple of pictures of him already.
All right, here we are. And just look this way, then we'll get your family in for a couple. Ready? And family.
Thank you.
Hey, Sophia, family.
If I may, President Tobin, also.
Thank you.
How are you? Good. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. And thank you so much for your service and everything that you do. I know you guys are rock star parents.
Yeah, so we'll make some room for our family. Family, you guys can sit in here all together.
Mom has to be in
Oh,
there.
Mom first.
No, you get here. For the other mom.
I have to elongate
Yeah.
myself. I'm a little short, you know.
Hi, everybody, we'll take a few of these.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'll get out here and check you out.
Yeah, we'll get together.
Okay.
Okay, that brings us to public comments. Speakers will be allotted 2 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. The yellow light below me will shine when you have 30 seconds remaining. The red light below me will shine and you will hear a tone when your time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. Please speak only on the topic which you signed up to speak on. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Any handouts should be given to the board assistant. So we will begin with in-person testimony. And we will begin speaking on item 5.01, superintendent's update, Ms. India Oakes.
India Oakes, Bates Middle School. I come tonight to speak about ineffective communication within school operations, specifically in regard to the recent hate incident at Severna Park High School. As I have said for years, communication should go to the whole AACPS community. Anytime a hate crime occurs, by isolating the response only to the school in question, it is feeding into systemic racism and systemic ableism. Our school system should be dismantling, failing to support thousands of other families who know about the altercation. Moreover, language in the letter impedes anti-racist efforts, watering down the racist microaggressions by saying racial epithet instead of being transparent with the N-word. And if I may express how far back the N-word was considered harmful, in Hosea Easton's 1837 treatise on the condition of the colored people of the United States and the prejudice exercised towards them, he references the N-word, and I quote, as a term employed to impose contempt upon blacks as an inferior race and also to express their deformity of person, and again quoting, it is this baneful seed, which is sown in the tender soil of youthful minds, and they're cultivated by the hand of a corrupt, immoral policy. Turning back to the letter, it also states, and I quote, phrases that are belittling and demeaning to a person with special needs, which is ableist language in itself, failing to publicly label, cripple, as ableist language, and subtlety portrays racist language as more serious than ableist language. I spent years professionally establishing policies to keep youth out of the justice system, and every student requires due process, but with equity comes transparency. This incident was not juvenile antics. Threats are a crime, and when targeting race and disability, it becomes a hate crime. We can't ignore such incidents just because it happened inside of school. AACPS must be fully transparent with racist and ableist incidents, and they must be reported, allowing law enforcement to handle it as appropriate. Otherwise, we continue cultivating the climate as referenced
Please
by Mr.
summarize.
Easton in 1837, where a young man, in the ardor of youth, aspiring to eminence and worth, has his first early hopes blasted by the frost of prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we will move now to item 5.02, Blueprint for Maryland's Future Update. I'm going to call the next 5 speakers, and if you please come up and take a seat. Ms. Allison Ripley, M. Callahan, David Pickens, Melissa Eidelman, Nicholas Blondell. Okay. Please go ahead, Ms. Eidelman.
Looks like I'm the only one.
Ms. Eidelman, good
Hi,
evening.
Melissa Eidelman. I'm speaking on behalf of Moms for Liberty, Anne Arundel County, 1 in 9 Moms for Liberty chapters here in Maryland. I asked myself, what is the definition of the word blueprint? So I looked it up. The word blueprint is defined as a design plan or other technical drawing. But in this situation, we're talking about lives, not a building design. I thought to myself, this BOE is dealing with implementing a required blueprint that is shaping our children's lives that also will affect our teachers, staff, and us parents. So then I asked myself, what is the definition of a blueprint in life? So I Googled that question, and I came across Dr. Martin Luther King's address to a group of students at Barrett Junior High School in 1967. What stuck out the most to me was that he asked these students, what is your blueprint in life? Dr. King suggested 3 deep beliefs to focus on: a deep belief in your own dignity, a deep belief in your worth, a deep belief in your own somebodies. But during the pandemic, you closed the doors on our children's teachers and staff way too long and destroyed their deep belief of worth, dignity, and own self-bodies, while losing the trust of parents. So now in Maryland and across the U.S., many of us parents do have concerns about the things our legislators and the State Board of Education is requiring. Some of these concerns are with the curriculum and the focus on which the school systems want to shape our children's worth. We send our children to school putting our faith in your arms, that you're looking out for their best interests. We feel strongly about making sure our schools are not teaching to the lowest denominator, but to the common denominator that we all care about, which is restoring and building these deep beliefs back into our system. We are truly hopeful you will gain some of our trust back by hearing us, taking in our testimony to heart, and including our beliefs in the decisions made. Thank you for the strides you have made, letting us be part of the process, as well as considering Moms for Liberty as a serious stakeholder in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. We are confident this will continue not only locally, but across the state, and look forward to our continued partnership and investment in our children. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we will move to virtual public comment.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome now to the virtual portion of our public comment this evening. Speakers will be allotted 2 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. Ms. Howe will indicate when your time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer sessions with our speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Our first speaker this evening, speaking on item 5.01, Superintendent's Update, is William Orndorff. So it appears that Mr. Orndorff is not with us this evening. Our second speaker, speaking on item 5.01, Superintendent's Update, Alexandria McComb.
Everybody, can you hear me okay? All right, my name is Alexandria McCone. I am here to testify. You can't hear me? You can't, okay, awesome. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Bedell. I am here today, to testify on behalf of the superintendent's listening tour. This was such a great opportunity to involve stakeholders and truly work toward the goal of building a positive relationship with the community. As this event demonstrated, communication is key to building trust. Many stakeholders voiced their gratefulness for the opportunity, as well as the importance of being heard. As is custom across the state of Maryland, stakeholders are granted the right to be heard at Board of Education meetings. I request the Board of Education to follow suit and allow stakeholders to communicate freely at Board of Education meetings rather than conforming to rigid agendas. Further, I would like to request that the agenda be more detailed so that stakeholders are capable of being specific as you require in each testimony. Dr. Bedell, thank you for demonstrating such outstanding servant leadership, and thank you all for your time. As a parent, I look forward to what you will accomplish with the feedback collected. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, speaking on item 5.02, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Update, is Amanda Carver. It appears that Amanda Carver is not with us this evening. So our next speaker, speaking on item 5.02, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Update, James Patterson.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me? Can everybody hear me? Give me that. Thank you. Okay. So good evening, everyone. My name is James Patterson, a U.S. history teacher at MacArthur Middle, not the author, now that we've cleared that up. This is my 8th year teaching and my 8th year at MacArthur. Personally, I feel much the concern over school safety is in large part a function of the number of vacancies we have had this year. Unfortunately, the incident that happened at MacArthur could have happened anywhere at any time. That's just the reality that these things do happen. Now, to me, the number of vacancies are what was pushing people to the edge, and that incident is what pushed them over, and justifiably so. Earlier in this year, we had 24 vacancies at MacArthur. The county as a whole had around 200, and that's total. So one school in a system of 128 accounted for 12.5% of the vacancies that were being filled by colleagues running to classrooms during their planning, Board of Education member or employees that came out to help us, and any substitute gracious enough to help us out. Much love to the subs and the Board of Education employees that came to our aid. Special shout out to, well, we'll just call her Miss L, who has been my English teacher on my team this quarter. These people are really our unsung heroes. Now, vacancies were, are, and will continue to be a problem. It's hard to be a functioning school without enough teachers. And on top of that, the MacArthur is already just a challenging school. We just are. I don't know why, but we are. Now, over the years, many teachers have chosen to leave because it can be hard here, and they don't want to deal with the added stress and headaches. This problem has been compounding over time. We need veterans in our challenging schools, and we need people to stay for more than a year or 2 or 3. The constant turnover of staff makes it impossible to create and uphold our desired school culture because we have to start from square one with so much of the staff every year. And this extends to assistant principals as well. I've had 11 assistant principals in the last 8 years. The problem will be worse next year. So how do we fix this? I've heard multiple answers over the last 8 years for how to get and keep people at my school. None have really worked. And in my opinion and experience, sometimes throwing money at a problem does work. Offer people a bonus, stipend, raise, whatever you want to call it, to get them to come to the needier schools in the county. If you offer it, they will come. I know some of my colleagues may not agree with me on this, and they will argue it's unfair to them. I understand this perspective, but I would ask that they consider ours, the teachers at the more challenging schools. The situations that we've been put in the past many years haven't exactly been fair either. The reality is that we need to get people here, especially people with experience, into our more difficult schools. And I'll just end with this. If you pay them more, they will come. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. That does conclude our virtual.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to item 4.01, the CRASC report.
Good evening, President Tobin, Vice President Silkworth, members of the board, and Dr. Bedell. My name is Michelle Fidel. I am a freshman at Chesapeake High School. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm very grateful to serve as CRASC Secretary of Education. Happy New Year's! Since our last report, CRASC kicked off the new year with our first town hall on January 4th. We discussed student concerns and hosted a guest speaker, Mr. Kevin Wajak, Director of Instruction. During this time, students had the opportunity to give their input on the CTE and CCR components of the Maryland Blueprint. It was a fantastic discussion. The first episode of Team Talk aired this year. In this episode, host Cameron Cherry visited Center of Applied Technology South, CAT South, taking a look at the extensive programs the site has to offer. She welcomed many student speakers to discuss their experiences in a variety of programs. This episode also highlighted the AACPS signature programs. Check it out on the AACPS YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at AACPS Teen Talk. On Saturday, February 11th, MASC is hosting its legislative session at Wheaton High School in Montgomery County. During this conference, delegates will attend workshops and elect the final 2 candidates for student member of the State Board of Education. Deadline to register is January 25th. Any interested middle or high school student should talk to your SG advisor about this opportunity. The CRASC Service Department supported a local faith-based organization in Severna Park called SPAN, which stands for Serving People Across Neighborhoods, for their November and December service projects of the month. Students at South River High School created Thanksgiving greeting cards, and students around the county, with the help of students on the Student Service Learning Leadership Team, SSL, gathered donation. Baking, snacks, and toiletry items were collected and distributed through SPAN. The January CRASC newsletter is now available on our website, Brightspace, and on our Instagram at CRASC_online. If any student wants to find out more about CRASC, make sure to check the CRASC website, which can be found www.aacps.org. www.cac.org/CRASC. The calendar on the website provides a list of upcoming meetings and leadership events. In honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, celebrated on Monday, I would like to share this quote. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Through Dr. King's iconic March to Washington, we learn to take action when a problem arises and not to stay silent. We can take his words and use them, even now, to do what's right in the various positions we serve in. That's what Dr. King did, and that is what he encouraged us to do. Thank you, and see you in February for my next CRASC update.
Even on video. So now you get to follow her. Item 4.02, the CAC report. Ms. Howard.
Thank you. Good evening, President Tobin, Vice President Silkworth, fellow board members, and Dr. Bedell. For the record, my name is Tanisha Howard, the chair of the Citizen Advisory Committee, also known as the CAC. On behalf of the CAC body, I'm pleased to have this opportunity to share and update the board on our recent meeting held on Monday, January 9th, where we had the pleasure of board member Corinne Frank. Thank you for your time and joining us. As a reminder for the public, the CAC conducts our meetings virtually on the second Monday of every month from 6:45 to 8:45, except for April. Our 2022-2023 meeting schedule is posted on our website. As you see, we have 3 remaining meetings this school year, and we encourage all to join our upcoming meetings. If interested, a request can be made via our CAC secretary. Also, this information is located on our webpage for your convenience. Next, Perspectives and Impact, launched in 2021 to honor the late Honorable Candace C.W. Antwine, featured a presentation from AACPS Ryan Sackett, coordinator in the Career in Technical Education, and Kelly Stutzman, acting manager in Work-Based Learning of Career and Technical Education, to recognize National Mentoring Month and how AACPS provides mentoring as a cornerstone of the Career in Technology program, along with internship opportunities. Our committee was able to delve to further insights into internships, office programs, and results. As with all this information, these insights allow us the ability to connect with community engagement to a key resource within our school system. It's always exciting to have a new agenda item, which was raised by our CAC member, Maisie Howard of Southern Elementary Cluster, outlining volunteering as part of a class course requirements and the way the community service and support is tasked at the elementary and secondary levels. For an example, organizations in the communities, including those that are part of Anne Arundel County infrastructure, don't accept teen volunteers younger than 18. Those that do are limited and have very different requirements for the opportunity. Some require a parent to volunteer alongside with the student. Others may accept teen students younger than 18 but have internal administrative requirements that make it very burdensome, such as 2 adults must be present with teen volunteers at all times. The committee approved a motion to explore this topic further and learn more about the organization of the program, its impact, and satisfaction of objectives to determine next steps for the CAC. Now on to the heart of the CAC, our subcommittees. Our breakout sessions include Hate and Bias, Ready to Read, Early Literacy, and Wellness Lens. The Hate and Bias is working, as you see, to fine-tune definitions and begin drafting a mission and vision statement. Their next meeting is January 26th. Ready to Read, Early Literacy is working to refine their problem statement and scoping other report sections. Their next meeting will be held at our regular CAC meeting on February 13th. The Wellness Lens is seeking greater diversity of thought on the virtual day instruction by researching other jurisdictions for comparison. Their next meeting again will be held at our next CAC meeting on February 13th. As always, we will continue to report any updates in progress over the next coming months. In closing, we would like to thank those of the community who continue to support us, joining the conversation, sharing your journeys, and collaborating on a chance to change and impact education with AACPS. We will have our new member implicit bias training on January 19th with Dr. Maisha Gillis. We will also upcoming this over the next couple of months. In February, we're going to feature Family Academy. This is the bright space parent perspective beyond grades. And in March, we're going to feature service learning, exploring further volunteering. With officially 3 meetings left this year, our subcommittees are steadfast in their engagement to complete our remaining work. As always, we welcome and appreciate everyone's feedback and to meet our purpose and present results to meet the challenges at hand and into the future. Thank you and see you next month.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. And thank you as always for your work and for all the work that CAC members do. I'd also like to mention that we are currently accepting applications for the CAC for the Crofton and Southern secondary clusters. The applications are open until 4 p.m. on Friday, January 20th. So thank you. All right, that brings us to item 4.03, the President's Report. So it's been a busy beginning to the year. Last Thursday, Ms. Corkadell, Mr. Silkworth, Ms. Schalheim, and I, along with Dr. Bedell, were privileged to attend the 17th annual AVID conference kickoff at Anne Arundel Community College, where the theme was Learning Through Service and included students from all over the county. The student speakers, as well as the guest speaker, were amazing, and students were able to attend a full roster of student-led sessions throughout the day. Many thanks to Glen Burnie High for hosting this year's conference, and to Ms. Talar and all the AVID coordinators, instructors, and students throughout our district for the incredible work they do to continue to make this one of the most successful programs in AACPS for the last 19 years. Last Friday afternoon, Mr. Silkworth, Ms. Schalheim, and I hit the road again. We picked up Ms. Frank this time, and along with County Executive Pittman, a very enthusiastic group of students and their families, we were thrilled to attend an event at Fort Smallwood Elementary honoring Ms. Heather Maloney, the bus driver who went above and beyond when her bus suffered difficulties on the trip home one day. She did extraordinary work to get all her students to safety and ensure that everyone got home safely. We presented a citation from the Board of Education, and the county executive presented a county citation in appreciation of her care, professionalism, and devotion to her students. We are so grateful to Ms. Maloney and to the many bus drivers who work every day throughout our county to ensure that our children are safe as they go to and from school. Mr. Silkworth, Ms. Frank, Ms. Schalheim, and I also had the privilege of, we're going to form a band before this is over, of taking a tour of the Museum of Historic Annapolis last week and viewing the newly restored museum and the extensive exhibits detailing the history of Annapolis and the many people who have called Annapolis home over several centuries. We thank Historic Annapolis for the invitation and for the private tour. and look forward to continuing to work with this organization in their extensive education outreach to enrich all our students' understanding of the history of our capital city. Finally, also last Friday, Mr. Silkworth, Ms. Schalheim, and I had the great joy of attending the 4th Annual Unified Physical Education and Dance Showcase at Crofton High School. From cheering the teams from each of the participating schools as they entered the gym, to watching students play together, work together, compete together, and care for one another, it was a joyous morning. Many thanks, as always, to Ms. Walsh and all the staff who make this such a terrific program, and to all the students who work together to bring out the best in one another. We all need more of the kindness, acceptance, and joy these students bring to one another and to all of us. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 5.01, the superintendent's update. Dr. Bedell.
All right, thank you, Madam President. And I want to say good evening to everybody who's here tonight. I have a couple of slide decks that I need to share with you all that are of significant importance. So we start off with this first slide, which is the goals that we focused on with the 100-day entry plan. We are at number 5. We have one more listening and learning tour that will take place tomorrow night at Brock Bridge. And this will be a bilingual session, and it will be our final session, but it's not the end. We do want people to know that we will continue to have opportunities for people to provide input online. And so there will all of these opportunities will be available soon, as you can see here on our website at www.acps.org/forward listening tour. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to gather as much input as possible. It has been eye-opening for me. I think there's a number of themes that have emerged as a result of being able to get out and engage the community. And I want to say this before we move to the next slide. One of the things that I have talked about at every single one of these listening learning tours is around inclusivity. And it is something that we all have to embrace in this school district. I think as I've shared the data, the school district is becoming more and more diverse by the day. But it's bigger than just being inclusive. This is about acceptance. And I think given some of the recent events that have occurred, whether it's the weapon situation at MacArthur that we are going to address, whether it is the bullying and insensitivity issue that occurred at Severna Park, which right now has caught national attention. These are things that we cannot tolerate in this school district. We cannot tolerate it, and we cannot operate with a callous heart that, oh, this is just okay. This is what it's always been. It's not acceptable, and it will not be tolerated. I'm being very serious about this. And so we want to have conversations with communities impacted. We want to talk about how do we begin to change the perception, because the perception is the reality. People can say, oh, it's people making this up. It's too many instances that have occurred, and it's not just because of Severna Park. We got issues like this around the county. Kids being bullied, too much bullying, kids being picked on because they're disabled, the use of racial slurs. And it's just not something that I think I will tolerate, administration will tolerate. And I know in the conversations that I've had with this school board, we want all of our kids to feel that they can go to school safe, they can learn. We want to send them back better than they came to us at the end of each day. We want growth across the board for all of our students. We want our teachers to feel safe, not to feel that they can't do their jobs because they don't know what's going to happen at any moment because of all of these incidents that are not only occurring here in our school district, but they're occurring around the country. You've seen what happened in Newport News. You heard what happened in Lansdowne. You've seen us as a district be represented on the news. it's embarrassing. And quite frankly, it's very concerning and scary. And so at the end of the day, I think as a school district, we have a responsibility to have a conversation, to be very crystal clear with everybody in this community around the help that we need from the community. This all can't be put on AACPS. This is bigger than AACPS. This is a community problem. And if we don't have community help to resolve what's going on, we're wide open. So at the end of the day, I have a sixth grader. I'm a parent just like many of you all have been and are. And I want to know that my daughter's going to come home safe, just like every other parent expects that of their kids. And they expect that of us as a school district. So we will be looking at a town hall meeting coming up to have conversations around this, to talk about help, to talk about where kids can go and get help if they're being bullied, and to really begin to push an anti-bullying campaign. Because I think part of this is bullying is out of control. It's out of control. And nobody should be held hostage because they're being bullied, that they're afraid to go to school, or parents are afraid to send them to school. And if they are then bringing weapons in to protect themselves, we haven't done a good enough job, and we cannot tolerate it. We cannot tolerate it. I will not tolerate it. So I just want to make sure that I mention that, because this is part of establishing trust and confidence from the community. I need the community to know that we're not going to sit up here silent, but we are going to be strategic. We're going to be tactical in how we do it, so that we make sure that we don't make mistakes in how we respond, but we do it in a way where it will be sustainable. So we don't have to keep coming back over and over and over and revisiting these incidents. So that is the comment that I really wanted to make, and we'll move to this third slide, Mr. Mosier. Some positive news here. We talked back in October when I did a presentation in front of the board, and we wrote out our plan around how we would address transportation, and that we had to take an alternative route, which we were able to do when the board on December 5th approved the alternative transportation model that we wanted to implement. And we thought that at the turn of the second semester, we said in that presentation that no family should go without transportation for the entirety of the school year. And we said that that meant that some families would receive interruption at the start of the second semester. I'm proud to share with every single one of you that that will not happen. Every route with assigned stops now has an assigned driver. No route swaps are necessary. But here's what I will tell you. We still don't have a bench. So that means when a bus driver calls in, or a bus driver is out for whatever reason, jury duty, vacation day, or whatever it is, there are going to be cases where we cannot get kids to school, and we will continue to communicate with you all as we continue to build up that bench. And so we know that that will happen. So we have addressed phase number one. Phase number two now is to begin to relieve overcrowding. So as we now get more bus drivers certified and we get more vans on the road, we will continue to free up more yellow buses. And as a result, we can now start addressing overcrowding as we get more of these candidates through the pipeline. And then the third phase is to build a bench. We need to have at least 10% above the actual workforce in order to be able to handle the call-ins. So that's the third phase of it. We have 49 bus driver vacancies as of today. And people are probably saying, well, you have 49 vacancies. How is that possible that you have all the routes filled? Because we have 49 employees that should be working in various departments within our transportation division that are having to drive. No different than what you heard from the teacher about central office employees who are going into schools and they're having to take care of some of the vacancy issues. We have 59 potential drivers and currently in training. So there's a lot of promise here that we'll be able to knock this down. And our goal is to be able to open up this upcoming school year and to be able to get all of our kids to and from school without any interruptions. And that's what we will continue to pursue. Next slide. So we talk a lot about what has been learned over the first 100 days. And we know that I think anytime a new superintendent comes in, you want to take a deep look at your curriculum. You want to figure out, is the curriculum easy for teachers to navigate? Is it easy for parents to understand? Do you see vertical and horizontal alignment in your curriculum? Is your curriculum aligned to state standards? Does it address meeting the needs of gifted and talented ELL students, farm students? Does it represent and reflect the diversity that exists within this school district? So all of our kids who are in this system see themselves reflected in the curriculum from a resiliency standpoint. And so we're going to take a deep look at our curriculum. The evaluations of proposals are ongoing. There will be a recommendation that will come to me next month. My goal is to bring this plan, to bring the award of the contract to the board for approval in March. Once we get that approved, we can get started with our audit. But everything that I'm hearing during these listening and learning tours is that we have work to do with our curriculum. I think people want it to be grounded in research. We want to make sure that we have a curriculum that speaks to the confidence that people want. We talk about science for reading. We talk about the special education aspect of how we're servicing our students in special education. We're going to look at all of those things in the curriculum. So we want to just make sure that I remind people that still will be an ongoing part of my 100-day entry plan, even though we've passed that 100-day period. And then the strategic plan. So the request for proposals were made public last week. Work on the new plan will begin May of 2023. We talked about how we want this strategic plan to be grounded in equity, and I've defined my definition around equity multiple times in community meetings and in board meetings. Innovation, being able to really look at things differently, think outside the box on how we can really bring joy back to teaching and joy back to learning, because I think we've lost that in many cases, and we think this innovation could help spur that. Looking at the social, emotional, and academic growth of students. Every single student, there must be value add. And we will have a scorecard that we will have available around how we're making progress on all of these areas, that we will provide an update every year to this board in the community, and we will post that scorecard to our website for transparency purposes with the community. And then adherence to blueprint. We know it's law, so we have to adhere to that. And finally, the semester break for students will begin on, it's targeted right now for Wednesday, January 25th. There must be a one non-student day between the second and third marking periods. Inclement weather could shift the day of semester break. And if that happens, families and staff members will be informed of any changes. So with that being said, that concludes the superintendent remarks. And yeah, thank you all for just being here tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. And that is excellent news about transportation. We're very grateful for the progress that your leadership has afforded and that the transportation department has made this fall. And I'm sure it's with great relief that families hear there will be nobody who has to lose a bus coming up. So thank you for that. All right, seeing no lights. That takes us to item 5.02. Do you need something? 5.02, Blueprint from Maryland, future update. Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Madam President. We will have Matt Stansky, who will provide an update for the board on the school system's work towards meeting the requirements of the Blueprint for Maryland's future. Mr. Stansky, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell, President Tobin, Vice President Silkworth, members of the board. For the record, Matt Stansky, Acting Chief Operating Officer, filling in for Dr. Pugh this evening. So I'm substitute teaching here. We're going to wait till we get the
I hope she left you a lesson plan.
She did.
Good.
And,
Yeah.
and if you know Dr. Pugh, it was extremely
I'm sure
detailed,
she did.
line by line, and I'm sure she'll be grading me. So no, really tonight, it's a brief update on our plan over the next really 6 to 7 weeks to engage stakeholders in our draft implementation plan. As to remind the board, we owe the Accountability and Implementation Board a plan for last year, this year, and next school year by March the 15th on the blueprint and all of its requirements. And so with that, I'm going to dive right in. So tomorrow we'll be opening registration for 2 workshops. One will be on January the 31st at Arundel High School, and one will be on February 1st at Glen Burnie. That one will be in Spanish. And so we will be opening registration. The reason we're asking for in-person for registration for these is to really be able to properly staff and prepare. And so that's why we're asking for registration for these 2 events. Just to give a little more detail on how these will work, Dr. Pugh will give an overview of the blueprint at these work sessions, and then there will be breakout tables, and we'll participants will be able to pick 2 topics at the breakout tables to participate and provide feedback based on draft answers that we have in our blueprint implementation plan. The time will be 5:30 to 7. Again, more details will be coming out tomorrow during that time. We also we'll have scheduled a series of 4 virtual public webinars. February 2nd will be focused on the Pillar 3, college and career readiness. The 6th of February will be focused on Pillar 1, early childhood education. Pillars 4 and 5 will be the focus on February 7th, which is more resources for student success and accountability. And then finally on February the 8th, Pillar 2, which is high quality and diverse teacher leaders. Again, these will be about an hour long. There will be about a 15-minute overview of the pillar provided by the pillar leaders, and then the opportunity for folks to, again, review draft responses to questions in the blueprint implementation plan. What's going to be good about these is they will be recorded. And so if folks don't have an opportunity or can't make the January 31st or February 1st meetings or any of the webinars, there will be a public comment opportunity where they can view the presentations and provide feedback via a survey that we will have posted on our website. So that will give the public additional opportunities to provide feedback based on our draft answers. And just a reminder to the board and to the community that translation services will be there both for the English version of the workshop as well as the Spanish version. All the webinars will be recorded for viewing, and then links will again be shared. So for folks who are unable to attend any of the webinars, or if you wanted to do multiple ones, but the schedule didn't permit, you could review the webinar and then again provide feedback via the survey tool that we will have posted on our website. And with that, Madam President, that concludes my brief overview, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Stansky. And I think Ms. Pugh should give you an A.
Awesome.
I see no lights, so I'm assuming there are not additional questions. So thank you very much for that update.
Appreciate it.
And we look forward to hearing more about the upcoming workshops. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us now to Section 6, consent items.
Can I move to bundle items 6.01 to 6.04?
Do we have okay. Do we have consensus to bundle? We do. Okay. Dr. Bedell.
Yeah, Madam Chair, the superintendent recommends that the board authorize the award of the contracts on items 6.01 through item 6.04.
Thank you.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Seeing no lights, Ms. Howell.
Ms. Corkadell.
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim.
Aye.
Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Ms. Frank.
Aye.
Ms. Ellis.
Aye.
Dr. Tobin.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So now that takes us to section 7, action items. Item 7.01, administrative personnel appointments.
Madam Chair, there are no administrative personnel appointments.
Thank you. Item 7.02, items of legislation. Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Madam. I keep saying Madam Chair, Madam President.
That's fine.
That's what I'm used to in Kansas City. I got to get over that. So these are items of legislation. The following General Assembly bills are presented to the Board of Education for consideration. The first section contains bills on which the board is requested to take a formal position. The second section contains bills for the board's information. A board's position is not being requested on these bills at this time. The third section contains bills addressed by the board's legislative program adopted on December 14, 2022. Accordingly, no vote is needed, and staff will advocate for the board's interest in accordance with the 2023 legislative program.
Thank you. Are we awaiting staff?
We are, but we're good. She couldn't bear the thought of me doing this.
My apologies, everyone. I forgot my badge upstairs. All right. Good evening, Dr. Bedell, President Tobin, and members of the board. For the record, Grace Wilson, Acting Legislative and Policy Specialist, here to discuss the items of legislation before you today. As a friendly reminder, the 445th session, thank you, of the Maryland General Assembly began last Wednesday, January 11th. Thanks. It's been a relatively slow start to the session. We've seen significantly fewer bills introduced than in the same period last year. Before you is the first legislative exhibit for the session. There are 3 sections to this exhibit. Bills in the first section require a board vote as they do not align with your legislative program. There are no bills in the first section this evening. Bills in the second section are for your information only. These are bills which I'm tracking, but on which AACPS has assumed no position. And the third section of bills, the third section contains bills which align with the position in the board's legislative program. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Frank.
Hi, thank you. All right. No worries, take a breath.
Just out of breath.
That was a long breath. I know, you got your steps in on that one. I had a couple of questions, and I know we're not voting on anything, but I wanted to get your, I wanted to get an understanding. So we're supporting HB 81, the Live Where You Teach program.
Yes.
And so I'm assuming the, and I had read your notes, so I do appreciate that. But I assume part of it is we support the folks that are engaged in our system that we want to, so we're not directly related to certain aspects of this program, but we want to support legislation that supports our people.
Yes, exactly, Mrs. Frank. You have a section in your legislative program that says we support initiatives that help teachers to live in the county where they teach.
Okay. Oh, okay, so the other document has that piece. Okay, so I was looking at the HB 24, and I was thinking, well, so we support, folks in our system that for living purposes, and we don't have an opposition to the tax exemption on musical instruments. But I was interested, would we? Is there a reason you wouldn't want to, or is there a reason why you would think? Because it is helping people and who would benefit who are engaged in our system. Obviously, parents and families who buy these instruments.
The staff benefits for staff staying in the community benefits the school system directly because it allows our teachers to be more engaged in the community. Whereas a tax break for folks who purchase musical instruments, or we also typically see bills related to a tax-free period for shopping, they don't have a direct impact on the school system. So I do track them and keep an eye on them. The school system does not assume a position.
I do like this one, so I might be interested in following up more on this one.
Sure.
Violins are like $500, so that's 6%. I mean, that's a little bit. So I have that bill that I'm interested in. I might want to pick your brain on that, and
sure, we can absolutely talk offline.
I may want to support that at some point. The other piece of legislation that I have had a lot of people reach out to me is not going to be a surprise. It's HB 119. I am very glad to see that AACPS is opposing this. Obviously, it restricts our ability as a local board. But beyond that, I just have so many parents who are opposed to the health framework initiative as it is. And I get a lot of feedback on this particular item. So not just what we have in our opposition, but constituents. I don't hear any of my constituents saying to me, I would really like more prescriptive sexualized education in our school system. Could you please provide that? It's the contrary. It's why are people overstepping the bounds of my parental authority? And to balance that is very difficult. So while I greatly appreciate that we are opposing this, and I truly do, I understand that some people who had wanted to testify on our legislative agenda were unable to do so tonight. So I know that that was a concern that some constituents had. So I would just like to propose that if they were not able to state that in this meeting and support our efforts in this area, that they should absolutely be reaching out to their delegates, because that is much more the proper channel for this in any case. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for sharing that feedback with me.
Thank you. Seeing no other lights, I think that's it for tonight. So thank you for being here, Ms.
Of
Wilson.
course.
And I hope you feel invigorated after.
Oh,
the-
absolutely. I'm ready to keep going.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to policy revisions, third reading, item 7.03, whistleblower protections, code GAJ. Bell.
Thank you, Madam President. The superintendent recommends approval of policy GAG, subject to final correction for style and format. This is the third reading for this policy.
I move that we accept this policy as written, subject to technical changes in formatting.
Second.
Anything you wish to provide, Ms. Wilson?
Nope.
Okay, then, seeing no lights, Ms.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Mr. McGrath?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Now, policy revisions, second reading, item 7.04, Board Internal Audit Office Code BBF.
Yes, for the record, again, Grace Wilson, Acting Legislative and Policy Specialist. Policy BBF, Board Internal Auditor, is a board policy which establishes an independent internal audit office to assist the board and AACPS in the effective discharge of their responsibilities. This policy is before you on a second reading after being remanded to the Policy Committee at the December 7th board meeting for consideration of amendments proposed by the Audit Committee. The Policy Committee adopted the Audit Committee's proposed amendments, including changes to Section C6, prohibiting the Director of Internal Audit of the Internal Audit Office and the professional auditing staff from reviewing documents to which they have been denied access by judicial authority, and clarifying in Section D, implementation, that the internal audit charter is to be reviewed by the superintendent and approved by the board president and director of the Internal Audit Office. Due to these substantive revisions, the policy will be posted for an additional public comment period through February 1st, when the policy is back before the board on third reading. Additionally, policy BBF will be accompanied by the rescission of policy DDD, Internal Audit Office. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you, and thank you so very much. This is just to review, it's the work of our audit committee. And in this particular matter, I want to extra shout out for the staff in, as well as our board attorney and Dr. Bedell's team in getting us to a place of getting a couple of these things cleaned up. My understanding is, based on our policy, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and you may not be that individual, it may be our attorney, but that once a first reader goes through, regardless of the pauses and our requests that we make for the policy committee. The actual amendments, once the first reader is out, would need to be adopted. And so with that in mind, because we had just taken it, we had paused the second reader. And so this is kind of a resumption of it. So my original understanding was that we would need to adopt these amendments in. Typically, they are done during second reader. With that in mind, I move to adopt the amendments as approved and presented to the board this evening by the policy committee as writ, providing for any technical or stylus edits as required. But if it's not required, then I wouldn't not make the motion. So that is the motion I would make, or similar. I mean, I could pull up the originals and do that, but
I don't have the policy right in front of me. I do think that it's better to make sure that we adopt these publicly and make sure the record is clean. Obviously, the policy chair is not with us tonight, but I think that's probably okay.
That was my understanding,
Yeah.
is that anytime we do have amendments, and the last time we reverted back to policy committee was on our own ethics policy. And so they did review quite a few amendments that were proposed by the members, and some were accepted, recommended, and others were not. In that instance, we did proceed with adopting them as amendments as part of our regular. So I am happy to proffer the motion. I do not know if there's questions that board members may have and do not want to preclude any normal discussion or that. And happy
I
to do
will
so.
second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Ms. Schulheim, did you have a question regarding this?
I just have a comment.
On adopting the, okay.
Yeah. I mean, in my view, this isn't the extra motion isn't needed. I mean, I'll support it and it's fine, but like, you know, it was already removed out of the regular reader process that we have to put in these amendments. And so I just, it's there before us. I'm not sure this is necessary, but I'll support it if we want to continue with it.
Okay. All right. I see no other lights. So at this juncture, are we prepared? Ms. Frank? Okay.
I move that the board adopt the recommendations for the two amendments as presented in the provided agenda materials, as explained also by accordingly. I can alternatively provide the original language that we presented to the policy committee if that is helpful, but my understanding is that the recommendations were incorporated into the document
No,
before
that's
us.
it. They are in the document that's
Yes.
before us.
Correct.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why the motion is a little lacking in substantive comment, because it's sort of self-explaining there.
I believe what Ms. Corcadell is suggesting, if I can paraphrase as best is that because this is essentially a pause that happened, it's as if we were seeing this on second reader, produced amendments, and we need to, as a board, vote on them. Am I getting that?
Correct. So
Yeah.
sometimes we
Does that make
present
sense?
motions and amendments as standalone documents, or as here's what it would look like.
Right.
In this instance, because of the substantive work performed by the audit committee, the auditor, the legal staff, and then lastly, the policy committee, it being presented as such is maybe a little out of the ordinary, but we were not in ordinary circumstances.
And I think we want to make sure that for the record, it's clear that the board accepted these amendments.
Mhm. Yes, that is correct. In accordance with our policy, we would have to be voting on the original first reader prior to all of that when we get to the third. So, or do a cleanup. I thought this was more in accordance with our policy and our policy intent to perform the motion. Did that answer your question, Ms. Frank, and follow up of Ms. Dr. Tobin?
Yep.
We good?
So we have a motion, we have a second. I think it's as efficacious as anything simply to take the vote and have it on the record.
I have a comment.
Ms. Ellis?
Yeah, so I believe that technically these are not amendments because it was remanded back to the policy committee, and the document before us is now the policy that's presented to us. The concern is if we treat this simply as a second reader, the document has been altered and should go back to the public for comment, correct?
And it will, correct.
Right.
It'll be posted for another
I
10-day
mean,
public
so
comment period.
I feel like technically
We're
these are
covered.
not amendments.
Okay.
But it does need to go back to the public. So for me, like, note to self, we need to look at our process here to make sure we're doing everything technically correctly. I don't see these as amendments, but if, I mean, I can support the motion. I just think we need to look at this a little more carefully in the
Okay.
future.
All right.
Am I correct?
Yes, my understanding of what you said is correct.
Ms. Corkdale?
I think what may help clarify, because everything you said is accurate to an extent, the emotion that was made to revert back to policy committee. In other words, our policy committee is not only to interject, but provide that additional advice. In other words, we may decide after a bunch of amendments that we want the budget committee, in theory, to take a look at some things before we proceed. The pause and the way we pause the second reader was to, number one, allow any other additions or amendments. But I believe the interpretation that was presented to me as we proceeded with this, because it was as advised by multiple people, was that our policy does give the option, as does Robert Rules. Robert's Rules allows us to always revert back to a committee and does not preclude any new or otherwise impact. And our policy was designed to allow for us to get some feedback, because the policy committee, in theory, could recommend against the amendments, in which case they would become them. So in a simplistic universe, what we are presenting are amendments to the original recommended. So that is why it was recommended, I believe. But I can't speak about others. And honestly, it happened like 60 days ago, like back in November. So I don't want to speak to specifics or provide legal advice to my fellow board members. But my understanding is by us adopting these amendments, we're going to come in a little cleaner, and I think more importantly, a little more transparent too, as to what it is. And by adopting them as amendments, they now qualify for the additional time for comment. If we were just did a hardcore amendment walkthrough, we would either have to go back to first reader, or we would be skipping the important step of making sure that our residents.
Ms.
have that
Corkadell,
chance.
that's not true. If you do
Oh.
amend a policy on second reading, it does not have to go back to first reading. What we do is we post it for an
Oh, okay.
additional public comment period to until the third reading when it comes back before the
got
board.
you.
So that is
Okay.
what my intention was for this policy, is because of these substantive revisions, if the policy was passed on to third reading, I would post it for an additional public comment period, bring any of that public comment back to you, and it would be before you on third
That's the
reading.
third reader I'm thinking of that has that additional requirement. Yeah, and
So
this
that
is why board
clarifies.
members should never advise board members.
So
but-
can we, do you wish, can you withdraw the motion, or how do we do that?
I have no interest in withdrawing the motion. I think it's important for us to affirm the two
Oh, I see.
amendments that we
Okay,
made.
I am now lost. So
We have a motion on the table with a second, and we were about to make a vote. There was a clarification and request for reader of the motion. I made that and provided the clarifying points of information, which is what I assumed they to be. Ms. Ellis then made another comment, thusly opening by its acceptance of the comment. It reopened it to deliberation and comment, and I was just doing one final comment. And I believe, at least in my brain, we are now back to the vote eligible unless other new comments have emerged at the discretion of, and
Okay.
any other discretion of the presiding officer.
Ms. Ellis, I still see your light. Do you have additional comments? Okay. All right, then let's take the vote.
Ms. Corkadone,
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye, whatever.
Mr. McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. So this brings us to policy revisions, first reading. Item 7.05, students' course-related fees, code JG.
Yes, policy JG, student fees, fines, and charges is before the board on first reading. This policy has not been reviewed since May 20th, 1991, and is being updated to reflect current AACPS practices and to align with the requirement of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future that students meeting college and career-ready standards will have access to post-college and career-ready pathways at no cost to students. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Ms. Schallheim.
That's awesome. So it hasn't been revised since I was a freshman in high school.
It is time.
Which is a long time ago. All right. I just have a comment. I do not have a question about this. I just have a comment, and that is this is awesome. I am thrilled to pieces about this policy and its updates. And yeah, let's go. Let's do this. Awesome. Thank you so much for bringing this forward for us.
Of course.
Okay, Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. I largely agree, but not entirely. But I just want to bring out, I brought this question up in policy committee, but I want to bring it to light here. So in the proposed policy for students deemed CCR, college and career ready, AECPS will pay for the full cost of advanced placement tests, international baccalaureate assessments, career and technical education certification assessments, and tuition fees for AECPS approved CTE pathways, dual enrollment for college and signature program courses. As a parent with my fourth high school student, I've been paying for AP exams all throughout. I have to admit, I'm going to enjoy that refund check for this year, where my bank, for my own bank account. But to be honest, we have so many priorities that those families that can afford these things, I feel like they should pay them. They're getting a bargain because it's replacing a college class in a lot of cases. But I was told this is in state law. It's in the blueprint. I just wanted to bring all this to light. I have concerns about our dollars meeting the greatest needs first, and many of us parents have been paying for these exams for years. I can't count how many I've paid for now, but it was something I was willing to do, and now it's in state law that it's basically it's going to be paid for by ACPS, by our taxpayers. Just want to bring that to light. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frank.
Yes, thank you. I had a quick question on item 5. Any student who violates state or local law or regulation and as a result of this violation, damage, destroyed, blah, blah, blah. So can you just explain to me what that entails? So they will be responsible for reimbursing the school system for just the property, or can you just go through that a little bit for me,
Yes,
please?
state regulation requires that every school system adopt a regulation that addresses restitution. It requires that if a student commits a violation of state law, or local regulation or state regulation, that the student is required to submit reimbursement for that, or the student's family. We are currently going through the process of reviewing regulation JCGRA. We felt that this was an appropriate cross-reference to make here, because while this addresses fees and fines, it's not every fee and fine. So we wanted to make sure that families were aware that this was a policy and practice, and that they could reference regulation JCGRA to find more information on it.
Okay, that was my next follow-up question. When it says regulation, does that include school-based regulations? Is that what it's referring to?
I'm not sure. It definitely refers to AACPS's regulations. If you're referring to a rule at the school level, I'd have to look into that.
Okay, all right, but it definitely refers to AACPS
Correct.
regs. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Corkadell.
Yes, so thank you, Ms. Ellis, for your comments. And it kind of got me to thinking, you know, it's state law, obviously. And we have many families who want to be generous and don't have those opportunities, or there's other barriers to make that less challenging. Perhaps when the policy passes, you know, when that we could remind the parents that they are receiving this, that had traditionally been paid for by the families. And if they would like to take that fee and equivalency to donate to the program that they're paying the fee for, or to that local school, or to a specific project, to the 21st Century Foundation, that we would still be willing to take those dollars for that program or otherwise, but instead as a donation. Is that something that maybe, I don't know, logistically or otherwise, but it seems like there may be opportunities maybe for some of those families who were contributing to offset some of our costs this way, could decide voluntarily to maybe take that fee and give it back to the school in another different way. But just a thought to throw out there to the community at large. And in general, when we are able to provide this through taxpayer dollars, particularly to comply with laws, not to mention the intrinsical value that this is going to have for many students who have had ongoing barriers in some communities more than others. But I think this may be an opportunity. Those families who have traditionally been used to paying for it, there may be other places where we could apply that in the form of a donation, I think. Maybe to offset some of the laptops that get damaged that the families can't afford to pay for or something. But I think there's opportunities here for us to still recognize the value of those who have budgets that can accommodate the fees, and still contribute and maybe offset a few more dollars in another part of the budget.
Thank you. Mr. McGrath.
Well, I just want to say I think this is a great day for students. I know when I was talking with students, they always wanted more opportunities to get involved in higher education. So this is just wonderful as the student representative of the board to be able to, you know, bring their voice forward and have more opportunities. I just want to thank everyone here that helps support students in attaining higher education, specifically this policy. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Ms. Ellis, your light is still on. Is that a new light or an old light? All right, thank you. Okay. So thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. Policy JG will be back after a 30-day public comment period on March 8th for second reading.
Excellent, thank you. So that takes us to Section 8, review items. We have item 8.01, construction status report. I see no lights. Item 8.02, monthly financial status report and revenue and expenditure projections. Again, I see no lights. So,
Move to adjourn.
second. All right. Do I have consensus? I think I do. All right. Thank you and good night, everyone.
Thank you.